Phishing has been the biggest online threat for years, and while it seems to have been overtaken by online scams in the last year, the number of phishing cases remains high. It's no surprise, as it's probably the easiest technique that fraudsters can use to gain access to your online accounts. Hi, my name is Danny, and in this episode I'll tell you how such mails are crafted, how you can identify them to protect yourself, and what you should do if you did take the bait. While the history of electronic mails can be traced back to the middle of the 1960s and business use took off in the 1980s, it wasn't until the advent of the web that the usage of emails exploded in the 1990s. Criminals were definitely not late to the party, as in 1994 a hacker in the US created a toolkit called AOL that was specifically created to target the then biggest internet provider, America Online, or AOL for short. It included a function to steal the passwords of AOL users. The term phishing, written with PH instead of F, could have originated there as well, but there's some debate about the exact origin. In any case, the similarities with phishing are definitely not up for debate. The fraudster throws out a line, being an email, and then waits. The message in the mail is the bait and should attract the right victims. The hook is of course the link inside the message, so that when the link is clicked, the fraudster can start reeling in the victim. And 30 years after the first phishing mail was sent, the technique is still very popular. In fact, the number of phishing messages, since it's no longer limited to emails, continues to increase year over year. So let's go through the different parts that make up a phishing attack and see how we can tackle this problem. To increase the chances of a victim clicking on the link, a fraudster will season their message with elements that trigger an emotional response. The first emotion they play on is fear. You will be fined. You will lose access to your accounts. Your money is in danger. The second emotion is closely linked to fear because it's urgency. In 48 hours, your accounts will be closed. If you don't react by a certain date, your pictures will be lost. In fact, these two techniques are often used together, so that it's not always clear whether it's the fear or the urgency that makes a victim click on a link. The third emotion is almost never combined with fear, but can be combined with urgency. It's curiosity. We all know curiosity killed the cat, and while it cannot kill us, it can get us in a lot of trouble. What will rouse our curiosity? You won a raffle. Find out what your prize is. You probably don't remember that raffle, which is normal as you never participated. Your parcel could not be delivered. Click to reschedule. Maybe you ordered something recently, so you will be easily tempted to click on the link. But it can get naughty as well, such as the promise of nude pictures of celebrities. Or it can get a lot darker, such as a video that will show you victims of a car crash, maybe even claiming that one of your friends can be seen in that video. As you can see, the number of stories that can be created by exploiting these three emotions is almost unlimited. Often, the stories are adapted according to current events to increase the chances that we fall for it. Luckily, the way we can see the bait but not take it is a lot simpler. Until a couple of years ago, you could identify a phishing mail by looking at the horrible spelling. This has always been a bigger problem for phishing mails in other languages than for mails in English, but those days are long gone. Not that all phishing mails use perfect grammar, but in general, there are no more mistakes in a phishing mail than in any commercial mail. There are several reasons for this. On the one hand, fraudsters have become much more professional. Some of them are organized as a company where different people have different tasks. This means that a person can get an expert in one task, such as drafting up an email. On the other hand, online translation services have become extremely good, which means that the fraudster, without understanding the language used in the attack, can rely on the quality of the translation. And let's not forget the rise of artificial intelligence. While it may not increase the quality of the text, it allows for the creation of a lot more variations. But if spelling mistakes are no longer an indicator of a phishing mail, how do you recognize them? In comes the S.L.A.M method. The acronym stands for Sender, Link, Attachment, Message, and refers to the 4 checks you can do when you receive a mail. And while I think it's a wonderful method, not every check has the same value. But let's go through them. The first check is the sender. Who sent the mail? This is a good check, but it has some limitations. First of all, you have to find the email address that sent the mail, because your mail application will often only show you the friendly name. And that friendly name can be anything. Once you display the actual email address, you need to look at the part after the @ sign. If that doesn't correspond to the brand that is mentioned in the message, then you should be very careful. If it does correspond to the brand that is mentioned in the message, then unfortunately, you can't conclude that you're safe. You have to understand that the sender of an email can be spoofed. It is possible to protect against spoofing, but it's not fully guaranteed. It would be too technical for this podcast to go into the details, so for the sender, let me conclude by saying that if the address doesn't correspond to what you're expecting, be very careful. And if it does correspond, then just be careful. Let's look at the second check, the link. The goal of a phishing mail is to make you click on the link. It shouldn't come as a surprise that this is the check that we have to pay the most attention to. We have to read the link to understand where it will take us. Since it is so important, I will have to ask you a little patience so that I can explain the last 2 checks first. Don't worry, that will not take a lot of time. The third check is attachment. As a check against phishing, we can skip it, because normally there are no attachments in a phishing mail. That doesn't mean it's not an important check, but it's a protection against malware or a malware infection, and that will be the topic of another episode. The fourth and final check is the message. What is the mail asking you to do? As I've explained earlier, fraudsters like to manipulate our emotions. But even without that, it's important to read the message carefully. Maybe it's a genuine warning about your social media account, or even from your bank. Often, genuine mails will not include a link, but rather an explanation of the steps that you need to take. Which means you open your browser yourself, you type the correct URL or select it from your favorites, and then you can follow the steps provided. This is a good protection. But sometimes, even in a genuine mail, we have to click on the link. The most common example being when we reset our password. So that brings me back to the second check, the link. Every website has an address. When a link is created to a website, that address is used. But the link contains a bit more than only the address. Let's look at the different parts. Usually it starts with https://. That's actually the protocol, but it's not really important to tell us where the link will take us. And yes, the S is important, but it doesn't mean we're safe. In fact, it stands for secure, meaning that the communication between your computer and the computer where the website is located is secured and cannot be spied upon. All the websites are now using HTTPS. That includes all the phishing sites and all the scam sites. Since browsers will use the HTTPS protocol by default, it's not even necessary to include in a link. So very important, but we can ignore it when we read a link. In our mind, we can drop it and continue with what remains. Next up is the domain and the parameters. Actually, I should say domains, because there are 3 parts. What we have to do now is locate the next slash. Everything that comes after the slash is not part of the domains. It's essential information for the website, but again, it doesn't help us to know where the link will take us. We ignore everything after the slash and continue with what remains. If there's no slash, then we just keep everything. The final step is a bit complicated because there are a few exceptions, but the important part is that we need to read the remainder of the link backwards, from right to left, while we count the dots. When we reach 2 dots, we can stop. An address can have a lot of dots, but the minimum is 1. We are now left with either dot some text or with some text dot some text. This is the actual address of the website. If this doesn't correspond to the brand that we are expecting in the message, then something is suspicious. Not necessarily fraud, but we have to be very careful when proceeding. Okay, let's make it a bit more complicated. There are a few exceptions to this 2-dot rule. And those exceptions are in countries like the United Kingdom, Australia, Japan, New Zealand and South Africa. Instead of using .com or .be endings of the address, they use co.uk, com.au or co.gp. For websites in those countries, the rule changes from 2 dots to 3 dots. To make matters even more complicated, an example from Belgium. Amazon waited a long time before launching the Belgian website of their store. By then, another company was already using the Amazon.be website. Amazon decided to mimic the exceptions of the countries like the United Kingdom by using amazon.com.be. In that particular case, the 2-dot rule is still valid because the com.be website really belongs to the company Amazon. If your head is now spinning, I have one more tip. When you receive a mail with a link from a company or institution that you know and have used in the past, but you don't want to take any risk with the link in the mail, then switch to your browser and type the address yourself. Even better, use your favorites to open the correct website. And if you haven't added a website to your favorites yet, then do it at the next visit. Depending on your browser, you can click on a star or use the menu, but even better is to use the keyboard shortcut Ctrl-D on Windows and Command-D on Mac. Now that you know how to read a link, you also need to know how to make sure you're looking at the link. There are 2 groups of applications and how they display a link. First up are what we could call the messaging applications. Your regular text message app on your phone, WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Signal, and so on. In these applications, when you see a link, you see the address and you can apply the rules that I explained. Easy peasy. Of course, there are other applications that don't make life so easy. These are in general your browser and your email application, but it's also valid for applications like Word. These applications can put a link behind some text, behind an image, a button, and so on. When you're on a computer, it's still quite easy. You put your mouse over the text, the image, the button, or wherever you need to click on, and wait, without clicking. The actual address will appear after a few seconds. In a mail, the address appears right above the link. You can now apply the rules that I explained before deciding to click. Be careful when you're in a browser, as there the link will appear at the bottom left. This is important as fraudsters will use the capabilities of websites to show a false address above the link when you move your mouse over the link. But remember to always move your mouse over the link and wait before you click, even when it looks like an address. As I said, in these applications, a link can be placed behind text, and that text could be the address of a genuine site. If you're on your phone or your tablet, the steps are slightly different. You first need to connect your mouse to your phone or your tablet so that you can put the mouse pointer over this link. Just kidding. Although it can work, we don't have to do that. We can use our fingers on the screen of the phone or tablet. We click on the link, but we keep our finger pressed on it. After a few seconds, the actual address will appear and you can apply the same rules to read the link again. That's a lot of information. You can always re-listen or re-watch this episode, but there's another website I want to tell you about that has this information as well. It's a Belgian website created by the Cybersecurity Coalition in collaboration with S.L.A.M, which is part of the Center for Cybersecurity Belgium. The website is called Surf Without Worries, and it contains short, free training sessions to improve your online protection. The first training module is called Phishing, Watch Where You're Going, and it explains the same rules as I did in this episode. You can find the website at surfwithoutworries.safeonweb.be. The training modules are available in 4 languages: Dutch, French, English, and German. A bit of shameless self-promotion, I'm doing the explaining in the version in Dutch. What if you clicked? If you clicked on a link that you shouldn't have, that's not the end of the world. While there's a very small risk of infecting your device with a malware, you have not been phished yet. In fact, it's the perfect moment to apply the rules to read the address by looking at the website in the address bar of your browser. If you went a step further and have provided details on the website, then you have to take immediate action. If it's a website that requested your username and password, then you should go to the actual website and change your password, if you still can. But most importantly, report the abuse to the platform. If it's a website that delivers financial services like your bank or a payment service provider, then contact your bank immediately. They will guide you through the steps you need to take. If you lost money, you need to contact the police as well. Reporting when you become a victim is of course super important to repair or limit the damages. But even if you didn't become a victim, only the recipient of a phishing mail, do report it where you can. For Belgium, the easiest is by forwarding the phishing mail to suspect@safeonweb.be. For the United Kingdom, the address is report@phishing.gov.uk. Phishing is still a plague and we're all being targeted, but we don't have to become victims. Some simple rules can be followed to spot the bait and not fall for it. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episodes. If you think your friends or family can benefit from this information, you can share the episode or the podcast with them. See you soon.